I want to welcome everyone today on Women's Equality Day to this webinar. I am Jean Sinzdak. I'm the Associate Director of the Center for American Women in Politics, a unit of the Eagleton Institute of Politics at Rutgers University. And it's my pleasure to officially welcome you to Breaking Marble Ceilings, Women in Power, and the Mayor's Office. We are beyond thrilled to co-host this important program with First Amendment First Vote, an organization that offers high school girls nonpartisan civic engagement and leadership development opportunities to engage in the democratic process and to imagine themselves in elected office or professional government-related positions. The organization's programming began in 2018 and since then has hosted hundreds of teams representing scores of New York State high schools. The idea to have this session on women in mayor's offices came from Melina Carnicelli, who I'm going to introduce in a minute, at First Amendment First Vote, and from Karen Greenwald, author of A Vote for Susanna, the First Woman Mayor. When they approached COP about hosting such a program, we jumped on the opportunity because we know that municipal office holding has been an understudied area of women's leadership. And we also know that the women serving in these leadership roles have made and are making tremendous differences in their communities. So thank you to Melina and to Karen for sparking this idea and getting us going, and here we are. I will serve as your co-moderator today, along with Rima Khan, a student leader working with First Amendment First Vote. I'm going to turn this virtual podium over to First Amendment First Vote's president, Melina Carnicelli, to introduce Rima. Melina is a retired educator and a former mayor of Auburn, New York, and is the board president of First Amendment First Vote. She founded the program 6 years ago with a vision for eliminating the gender gap in U.S. elected offices at all levels. She resides in Auburn, the chosen home and final resting place of America's iconic abolitionist, suffragist, and social justice activist, Harriet Tubman. Melina?
Oh, thank you, Jean. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome on Women's Equality Day 2024. The reason we're here today is to ensure a future where women are equally represented in government leadership 365 days a year, not just one day. Thank you all on the call for joining us. And on behalf of First Amendment First Vote Board of Directors, many thanks to Jean and Kai at the Center for American Women in Politics for partnering with us, and much gratitude to the mayors on this call for helping to make the webinar possible today. And as you heard, First Amendment First Vote is a nonpartisan opportunity for teens who identify as girls to know that government leadership is their rightful place, and then to imagine themselves as a government leader. Now, with pride, I have the honor of introducing today's student moderator, Rima Khan. She's a member of our upcoming cohort and a summer intern working with us on updating our student tracker database and compiling current stats on women in executive government leadership at local, state, and national levels. Rima is a leader among leaders in the program and has been with us for most of her high school experience. She's a rising senior at Williamsville North High School in Erie County, New York, and says this about herself: she is an academic, activist for positive change, and lead member of First Amendment First Vote's Student Voices team. Rima plans to pursue neuroscience and psychology at the University of Buffalo when she graduates in June from high school. Thank you, Rima, for your talents and your activism with us in the program for these last few years. Now, back to you, Jean. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melina, and welcome, Rima. Thrilled to have you co-moderating with me. As your unofficial MC for this session, I'm going to just give you a bit of a rundown of how the session is going to go. First, we're going to just share briefly some context for the discussion, so some of the numbers and what we know about women serving in mayor's offices and in municipal office. And then we'll have a brief presentation by Karen, who will help set the stage on the history of women serving in mayor's offices and be, sort of something that leads us into our lively roundtable discussion with women mayors serving around the country. We are also recording this session so it can be used in classrooms and other programs focused on local office leadership. The recording will be sent out to all participants afterwards and will be available on our resources page on our Teach a Girl to Lead website, which we'll put that link in the chat. So first, very quickly, the numbers. Here at COP, as we call ourselves, we've been collecting data on women serving as mayors in cities of 30,000 and above since 1988. And sadly, the numbers have not dramatically improved in the past 36 years. In 1988, just about 12% of all mayors of cities of 30,000 and above were women. In 2024, just about 27% of them are. It's an improvement to be sure, but at this pace of change, we have a long way to go until we get to parity. When we drill down to the 100 most populated cities in the country, things look slightly better. Currently 34 of the top 100 cities have mayors that are women, so 34%. Also in 2021, COP began collecting and reporting on data for women serving in all municipal offices, which includes mayors, but also council members, members of boards of aldermen, city commissioners. And as of 2024, in cities of 10,000 and above, women hold 32% of those seats nationally. You can see how your state fares compare to the national average on our website, which will also drop that link in the chat. So we've seen improvements. Women are serving as leaders in municipal office more than ever, but we still have a long way to go. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Karen, who's going to share with us briefly some of the history, starting with the first woman who ever served as a mayor in this country. Karen?
Hi, I'm sure you're probably wondering, what does a picture book author have to do with this conversation today? And the funny thing is, a lot, actually, in ways that really surprised me. 5.5 years ago, I began researching the history of an election that took place in a very small city of under 500, still today under 500, in the middle of Kansas, called Argonia. It was right after Kansas became the first state to grant women the right to run for office and vote in certain sized municipalities. Well, as you can imagine, a large number of men were not happy about this. The governor himself said it was agreed to because it was an experiment that could be overturned in 2 years' time. Fast forward to April in Argonia, where a group of men for the election for mayor decided that they were going to do something to stop the law if they couldn't change it. At least in their city, it was going to be a non-issue. They put a woman's name on the ballot as a joke, so they said, and they thought, of course, she won't be elected. When she loses, not only will women not want to run for office, they won't even want to discuss politics at all. They stay in the house, in the kitchen. We take politics as our domain, and that's it. Little did they know that another group of men who had seen these ballots went to Susanna Salter, of 28 years of age, outside her home, hanging her laundry, tending to her little children, and showed her the ballot and said, "We're not okay with this. We don't want Argonia being controlled by bullies. If you will take this seriously as an actual nomination, we will spend the rest of the day telling everyone that we want you as our candidate. We are no longer supporting our other one, but you have to promise that if you actually win, you will do the very best job you can." In spite of her husband's concerns, in spite of the risks of humiliation to her family and to future generations of her family in that city, she said yes. And the rest of the day was spent with these men and a number of women telling everyone to vote for Susanna. 4 days later, she won by a landslide. And the interesting thing is, nobody in Kansas to this day, well, I mean, not nobody, but a large number of people have still never heard about this story. And most people who do know about Susanna Salter have seen something on the internet or an article, all of which comes from a 1954 article written by her then grandson-in-law when she was in her 90s. Nothing in any of these places talks about who she was as a person and how she felt. But her election victory, because she was the first woman, as Jean said, in America, to be elected to serve as served, She was actually the first woman in the entire world. So it became an international topic. She became an international icon for years. They wrote about her. High slide, please. And here's what they said. Mrs. Salter makes her own clothes and her children's clothes. Her eyes are gray, her hair is blonde, and is worn crimped. If the custom of electing mayors is to continue, which is interesting because there was no custom, it will be important to have these details before election. Slide, please. Susanna Maduro Salter, you can see the beautiful pictures of her, much unlike what she actually looked like, cranky and mean, and yet she was 28. Susanna Maduro Salter, the new mayor of Argonia, Kansas, is the spoils woman of the deepest dye. She purposes to turn out every horrid man in the municipal government and fill all the offices with women. Slide, please. She can outcook and out-dishwash any mayor or alderman that ever ran. Now, what do these things not say about her? Susanna Salter went to college. She did study dressmaking, but also, as she coined it, parliamentary training. Her father was the first mayor of Argonia. Her father-in-law had been a lieutenant governor of Kansas. She grew up in a very civic-minded home, and she helped her husband, who was the clerk of the city, do his work. She was probably, regardless of gender, one of the most qualified people in the city. And she took the job very seriously, taking Argonia from debt to solvency as her first task. Because she said yes, because the law remained, and in the next election in Oskaloosa, another small city in Kansas, not only did they elect a woman to serve as mayor, they elected an entire female city council. And like Susanna, that city's women took the city from debt to solvency in the year they were in office. So I decided, after learning all this about her and delving even deeper, that I wanted to take this story and make it my candidate. So I have spent the last several years sharing this story with as many people as possible, and in particular, many women, particularly those serving in office. And what was very interesting to me, and what led to me talking to Lena and then Diana Smith, both former first women mayors, is that every single woman who was serving or served as mayor that I spoke with had been the very first in their city. Very first. And like Susanna, what the press said about them and what the barriers they faced and the discrimination they had to deal with was pretty much unchanged in 137 years. Now, I was able to write the book because after a serious vetting, her great-granddaughter, and great-grandson shared personal letters from Susanna. And that's where I found her voice. And I found the reasons why she said yes. And in the conclusion of the story as I wrote it, I remember thinking the words in the last song in Hamilton. When you're gone, who will tell your story? I want this conversation today to be the spark that makes people think about all the other women in history whose stories, like Susanna's, have been brushed to the side. And I want it to be something that gets women and young girls thinking about the crack in the ceiling that they can put so that we can break the ceiling all the way through. Slide, please.
Thank you so much. Are you still?
Yeah, I was just going to say one thing.
Okay, please do.
And in
I'm sorry.
in Susanna's opinion, a woman can fill the office as efficiently as a man. And if you want to know more about her story, it's in this book.
Thank you so much, Karen. This was excellent. I think it's, it really resonates, I'm sure, with some of the mayors all the mayors that are sitting here today. And it's a great sort of connector through line from the history to the current moment. And I did not officially introduce Karen when she started talking. So I just want to say she's an award-winning author who's written multiple books, and her strategic branding efforts have won 17 international awards. And so it's so great that you were able to bring this personal experience and this expertise you have to telling this woman's story and then using it as a launching pad for conversations like these that are so important. So thank you so much. And Karen will come back into the conversation as we get into the Q&A. But now we are going to turn to our roundtable mayors discussion and get started. I'm going to briefly introduce each of them. We do have their full bios on our website. If I read them all, we would be here all day. They're incredibly accomplished. But let me just start by introducing each of them briefly. First, I have Mayor Diana Smith. As the former mayor of Seneca Falls, New York, and a former president of the New York Conference of Mayors, she is a strong advocate for local governments. She actively promotes strategic municipal planning and authentic community engagement to support informed decision-making through her work at MRB Group. And she is passionate about encouraging women to pursue leadership positions, especially elected office. So welcome, Mayor Smith. Next, I have Mayor Michelle Romero, who was elected mayor of Henderson, Nevada in June of 2022 and took the oath of office in January of 2023 after previously having served on the Henderson City Council. She represents the city of Henderson on the board of directors of the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance, and as one of the chief local elected officials overseeing the Board of Workforce Connections. Prior to her elected service, Mayor Romero served the city of Henderson for 25 years in several capacities. So welcome, Mayor Romero. Next, we have Mayor Lily May. Her journey to public service began with her election to the Fremont School Board in 2008. In 2016, she became Fremont's first female and first Asian American mayor. She has implemented many initiatives in sustainability, affordable housing, and infrastructure that have positively impacted the community. She has been recognized for her leadership as the San Francisco Business Times most influential woman in the Bay Area business and Citizens for a Better Community Citizen of the Year. So welcome, Mayor May. Then we have Mayor President Sharon Weston Broome. She's the first woman elected as Mayor President of Baton Rouge and East Baton Rouge Parish, Louisiana. Her career includes serving on the Baton Rouge Metropolitan Council and in the Louisiana State House of Representatives and State Senate, where she broke barriers as the first woman to have served in the highest positions of leadership in those houses. She's the first vice president of the National League of Cities and is on track to become the president of the National League of Cities in November 2024. So welcome, Mayor Broome. So welcome to all of you. It's so, as I keep saying, so wonderful to have you all here. I'm going to kick off the panel with the first question, but Rima and I are going to go back and forth. So my first question is, we know from research that women often choose to run for office because of a particular issue or a set of issues that inspire them. What was the catalyst for your decision to start your political career and or to run for mayor? And I'm going to go just in order of how I see you on my screen. I don't know how everyone sees you, but I'll start with you, Mayor May.
Sure. I think that part of the catalyst for what got me involved is that we talk about role models. And, I come from a culture where the definition of what women's expectations are ever evolving. And I think back on how my grandmother actually had her feet bound. And my great-grandmother was liberal enough to cut her feet free, who I never met. But I got involved for school board and for being involved. And so often, especially being Asian, sometimes we're perceived as being perpetual foreigners. And I did not see anyone like me when I was growing up. I only saw one elected Asian person, that was SB Wu, in all my years. And when I was faced with a lot of the challenges that I see in our community about schools and the divisiveness on the educational opportunities, there had been a perception that Asians were more likely just to focus on your own children and not on others. And having been in the corporate world, I also seen the barriers there for the bamboo ceiling. And so I wanted to be able to show to people that it wasn't something you just complain about, but if you want to see something, do something about it. And so that's what got me involved.
Thank you so much. So next I see Mayor Romero.
For me, I've lived in this city since birth in Henderson, and I love it. And I raised my kids here, and now my grandchildren are being raised here, most of them. And I worked for the city for 25 years. And over that time, I saw some really great leaders and then some leaders that weren't so great. And I learned just as much about what not to do as a leader as great things to do. And as I got close to retirement from the city, I realized that there was going to be an opening on the city council. And I felt like I was uniquely placed with a really different background than had ever been on a council before to make decisions for the city, being a lifelong resident and almost a lifelong employee for the city. I knew the ins and outs, but I knew the issues from both sides. And so I ran for office and then ran for mayor, and I've been here ever since.
Thank you so much. Mayor Broom?
Well, I often say that the reason that I first ran for elected office 35 years ago now is the same reason I chose to continue to pursue this path of public service. My motivation is pretty simple. It was that I was dissatisfied with things that I saw taking place in my community. And I often refer to it as a calling. I felt this calling to help do something about what I didn't see taking place in my community. And so as I just stepped out with no name recognition, no money, no backing, but the motivation and drive to want to connect with the citizens in my community, and most importantly, the passion for change. So that was my motivation for first running for office some 35 years ago to the city or Metro Council.
Thank you so much. Last but not least, Mayor Smith.
Thanks so much. I think very much like Mayor Broom, I was motivated by the drive to make a difference, but I never imagined myself being the torchbearer out in front. It wasn't an aspirational goal. I had worked for many years as a staffer in the New York State Senate. Very happy to be support underneath, leadership. And there were some specific issues. We had a really misguided, my predecessor was very misguided, had kind of gotten himself into trouble with some bad decisions, one of which was eliminating the public comment from board meetings. And so people were really outraged. There was a group of people who wanted to oust this particular mayor. And I was at that time a trustee on the board of trustees for the village. And I was working to support another individual to run for mayor. And as he became more questioning whether or not his marketability was strong enough, I was prepping him, I was giving him lots of information, encouraging him. And there came a moment at which it dawned on me that perhaps it would be better if I just stepped forward and took on that responsibility. And so it was kind of a why not me moment. And I realized that the biggest barrier up until that point was me. So that's kind of my unique story about why I decided to run. It was an aha moment.
Thank you. So I'll turn it to you, Rima.
Awesome. Yeah. So the next question is, how do you think that being a woman has influenced your experience as mayor? Why is it important to have women in municipal government? And for this question, we are curious as much about challenges as we are about your accomplishments, and that your innovations through your leadership that you have brought to your city. And we can start off with Mayor Lily May.
Sure. So I have to say that it's a very loaded question. I think that being a woman, and it's given me interesting perspectives coming out here originally to my city 31 years ago as a young person with student loans, raising my family, and being a working mom. and seeing everything now, even as a senior, a quote unquote senior, according to ARP. I want to thank COP for also acknowledging that while I'm honored to be our city's first woman mayor in the United States for big cities, I think I'm the third in US history, which means that there's a long way to go. But being the first gives you more responsibility to hopefully lead a good way as we move forward. Some of the blessings we've had is having been in different positions, both as a working mom and having multitasked. I think all moms know that it's very difficult to, but it also allowed me to feel comfortable expressing my voice, which I think is something that we think is important for us. We're one of the happiest cities, 6 out of 8 years, and the best place to raise a family. But it's also deliberate in thinking about how we build our workforce, how we bring people together, how we ensure that our people feel safe, as well as, resources. I jokingly say that I'm the largest manager, is the executive, the CEO, making 400,000. I make 50,000 a year as the mayor. But I also think that there's a lot of challenges, and I'll be really candid about this for people who think that things have changed and haven't had challenges. I've been threatened, bullied, and I've run 7 elections. I've been in office 16 years, and out of every single election, I've been literally threatened in every one. People have had literally tried to run me out of town at times. And being Asian in this moment where there has been a lot of xenophobia and Asian hate, I'm sad to say that that's even come into play. And I think people will be surprised that as a dark horse, or as someone who came in from grassroots, just as a parent who wanted to make a difference, or a community member who wanted to make a difference, it is very political. It's a nonpartisan role in my city, but it has been very political. Whether I've made we're a compassionate sanctuary city and getting threats on one side, to where I didn't take a knee because people don't understand, as the first Asian, what it means also for an Asian person. So I've gotten it from both sides of the party. And in fact, I actually, in my last election, because of some of the fact that I took a stand many years ago on school board to stand up for the Asian community, saying, how come we don't recognize, we're the 6th largest Asian city in the United States and the largest percentage wise. How come, if we're going to pick the one day, because we've always had in schools recognized, federal holidays and our labor groups and classified Teachers Day and other stuff, but the one day you're going to pick is Harvey Milk Day. And I chose to say, well, what about the Asians? Because, come if you pick your own hero. What about Fred Korematsu? May happens to be Asian Heritage Month. And in the last election, I actually literally got banned. And yet the same type of issue sometimes when it happens with somebody who's not of the Asian ethnicity, who's white or Hispanic, they were actually embraced for making that stand. And so I think that we have a long way to go. And that's why I'm really grateful also serving as the president for Asian school board members for the state of California, because we talk about history. It's not Asian history, it's American history. And when we talk about things like also being National League of Cities and US Conference of Mayors, I'm honored to serve on their advisory board. But they've been around 92 years, and we've had a Latino Mayors Alliance, a Black Mayors Alliance, and I'm so privileged to say last year I helped form the Asian Mayors Alliance, because being the first means that you don't want to be the last, and building that pipeline is critical. And so I think that's some of the things that I've had as an experience and as a challenge. And I'm really grateful for this opportunity to share with all of you as we move forward, because it really is a sisterhood and how we be able to support each other to ensure that this is the future as we move forward.
Yes, so on to the next panelist, Mayor Romero.
I think women a lot of times are more empathetic than men, and we are not afraid to bring people to the table to discuss issues, and we're open to diversified ideas and thoughts, and we're not afraid to kind of step outside the box and bring people together. I agree with Mayor May. We also are great multitaskers as women. We do it all the time. We are mothers, we're wives, we're employees, managers. We do all the things, and we're used to it. And so I think we can move at a much quicker pace sometimes, because it's just normal for us to be able to do that. And similar to Mayor May, I've faced similar challenges, although mine were pat on the head, little blonde girl, go sit at the table somewhere while the men do the work. And it took a while for some of my colleagues and others to realize, oh, there's a brain behind the blonde hair, and she means business. I am not afraid to speak up. I am not afraid to make a decision, and I have grown to into my position to where I feel very confident that given all the facts, I've made the best decision possible for our community, and I've gained the respect of my fellow council members, who at first, one of them actually was going to run against me for mayor and ended up dropping out of the race. And now we are the best of friends. He originally, thought, oh no, she can't do it. And now he is one of my greatest supporters, and we get along fabulously because I was able to form a team with our council members and get them working together and play to their strengths, and not be afraid for somebody to get the limelight, because when we're working as a well-oiled machine for our city benefits, and we have become a really great decision-making team. One of my biggest initiatives was, I felt like our city is quite large, not compared to some of them, but we're about 340,000 people. And I thought in the past, we were really great at putting messages out. We got, all kinds of things that went out to the public to let them know what was going on, but we weren't great at bringing messages in and listening to what was important to the community. So one of my biggest initiatives was making that change. And so me as mayor and our council members are out in the community on a regular basis in very informal settings, gathering information from our community about what's working, what's not working, what's important, where they'd like to see us put our efforts. And it has paid off in spades, and we've been able to do some great things in our community.
Awesome. And on to the next panelist, Mayor President Broom.
Well, I would echo a lot of what my other panelists have said, my co-panelists. I certainly believe that women bring a myriad of experiences, knowledge, insight, wisdom to whatever experience they enter. So right now, as mayor, I will tell you that I have had the opportunity to, before I became mayor, before I became an elected official, I was a single woman trying to make and earn a living. I was a entrepreneur. I was with a job sometime, without a job. Had to manage a budget, my own individual budget, pursued opportunities. So many, and then when I became a wife, a mother, a grandmother, managing a home, all of those experiences help us in our roles, and in particular, as I speak to my role as mayor president. So all of those experiences have influenced my role as mayor. But I would say this also. As you heard, I've had the opportunity of being on the city council. I was in the House of Representatives, a senator, and then I came back to local government. And so I will tell you that there have been times where people could receive me better when I was at the State House than they could as the CEO of a city and parish of over nearly 450,000 people and the CEO of a budget of almost $1 billion. I never will forget when I first started as mayor. So it was a big shift when I became mayor. I remember when I first started as mayor, one of the leaders in the community told my chief administrative officer, or posed the question to him, do you trust her leadership? Now, I don't know why they thought that would not get back to me, but it did, And this is when I first came in office. So it's important for women to be in spaces like municipal government, like every area of government, so we can demonstrate to others the significant role and impact that women can make in elected office. As the first woman elected mayor of Baton Rouge and East Baton Rouge Parish, as the first African-American woman elected, I will tell you, as a leader, a female leader in the Deep South, in this role, I have seen an elevated level of sexism and racism. Now, I attribute that to a lot of different things. One, I believe the season has changed a lot in issues surrounding sexism and racism in particular. And so some of the things that maybe weren't happening to me 12 years ago have shifted. I will also say that as a mayor of a city in the Deep South, once again, some people can receive women and women of color in certain positions, and some don't see me as the leader and CEO of a city. They think that they can do it better. A city historically, prior to me becoming mayor, had the first African-American mayor that served 12 years, but a city that has been in transition in terms of diversity. So there's a tug of war, if you will, in terms of a power shift in our city. So that has impacted my role as mayor. But I think it's extremely important to have women in municipal government and all levels of government, because you know, we're great leaders. What can I say?
Now on to our next panelist, Mayor Smith.
Thanks. I think I would largely echo what's been said already. I think maybe Mayor Romero and I live in parallel universes. But honestly, I think it's so important to elect women, especially to roles as policymakers, because people, in my belief, are the sum of their experience, right? So the barriers to women's leadership, for instance, are experienced more by women than men. So equality is never going to be successfully addressed until we have women in positions of policymaking. And unfortunately, not as many men are primary caregivers or face the kinds of challenges that women face as primary caregivers. So until women have an equal say in policymaking, I think it's less likely that any of those things will be discussed adequately or addressed the way they should be.
Thank you all. This is a lot of food for thought. I mean, what my next question was about the challenges, and I think some of you have already raised the challenges that you face serving in these roles. You know, Karen talked about the challenges that Susanna Salter faced when she became mayor, and when you listen to some of the things that you all say, there's some of the similar themes, but also you're talking about what's happened in terms of racism, sexism, xenophobia, maybe a lack of trust in your leadership, not seeing you as executives or seeing women as being in executive roles. So I'm curious, we are curious about, when you hear the history, how some of the challenges of that earlier times resonated with you. And I guess I also am going to pivot a little bit to, then what do you think we should do to get more women to run for these roles, even in the face of the challenges that we're all seeing, and it's a little bit of, I'm shifting my question a bit, in terms of, because you answered somewhat the question about the challenges you have faced getting into this office or serving in this role, but more to, how those challenges resonate and how we might take this now and go forward with it. And what's our next step in terms of really encouraging more women to serve in municipal government? And I mean, anyone can feel free to jump in if you want to make it a little bit more of a roundtable. I can start with, I'll start with Mayor Broom if that's okay, but I feel free to jump in at any time.
Yeah, this has to be a top priority of women in municipal government. Because the bench is thin, right? And in order to build the bench, we've got to be very intentional about it. And so that means that, and I don't use the word mentoring casually, we have to be mentors and bring other women along on the journey. Women that have a heart for leadership, especially in government. We have to bring them along on the journey. We have to spend time with them. We have to nurture their strengths. We have to help mold and shape any weaknesses that we see that they need to learn, and we need to share our missteps, our mistakes, our strengths, our weaknesses, our experiences that we have learned. I tell you, in the role as mayor of being CEO, I have learned a whole lot. It was a shift in coming from the legislative branch to the executive branch. I am going to write a book one day, but I can tell you that there are many times when I look back now. I'm serving in my second term, about to wrap up my second term and running for my third term. And I can tell you from the first time that I stepped in this role to making a bad hire of a CAO to now, I can definitely share with future mayors, future female mayors, some of the mistakes that I've made and lessons that I've learned in this process. I haven't repeated those mistakes. I've grown since those mistakes, but I don't want to see the next mayor, Susanna Salter, who steps into the role of Susanna Salter. I don't want to see them make the same mistakes. And I believe that my experiences will help mentor the next woman or female mayor of Baton Rouge. But we got to be real intentional about it. It takes time, it takes commitment. And I'll stop there. I could say a whole lot of that, though.
I'd be happy to jump into this a little bit. I think, I'm finishing my second term and final term as mayor, and I often have people asking me now, what are you going to be next? And I jokingly say, I don't know what I'm going to be when I grow up. But I think that, being able to build a pipeline is important. I think being there and representing the community, and I came from Drexel, Philadelphia, and we have a learning by doing class. And I believe in being hands-on. And if you don't have a seat at the table, it's time to reset the table maybe. And so it's important for us to be there, whether it's, I'm very proud to be part of, for example, engineering. There's not that many women in that. So I work with SWE and do Introduce a Girl to Engineering Day. Things like Habitat for Humanity. When I tell people that we build our city, I literally have worked on days, and I asked for that for my birthday for women to come join me. And we've done women leadership. It means that embracing different cultures. So things like, small businesses, when we're faced with a pandemic and making sure people didn't close, we worked with Grubhub. And so we had a break fast with the mayor. So you can have, we have everything from different cultures and heritages. Over 50% of our family come from immigrant backgrounds. So it meant during the Afghan changes, we actually did an Afghan Refugee Help Fund and raised over $500,000, being immigrants ourselves, knowing the struggles to be able to relocate. So those types of things really help us, I think, in terms of wearing the multiple hats. I used to be a worldwide sales controller for a tech company, a $5 billion company. And I also ran a global trade association. Yet when I ran for council, they asked the question from coming from school board to being in city council, whether or not I could handle being a businesswoman. And I was like thinking, well, only a couple $1 billion budget, it should be okay. And running global organizations, yet, being the first woman, I had questions also saying, well, what if the men don't want to listen to you? Because when I came into the council, I was one of 5, and we were 4 men and myself. And people saying, well, I jokingly said, if everyone has a mother, a daughter, a sister, a wife, you ask my former husband and my son, you don't have a choice. And so I guess that's the same for my council. So things like that are important, but also building that pipeline, creating that awareness, and building this organization like you have here. These forums really help amplify the need, the creation, the support network that's critical. And that's something I feel very, very passionate about. And you don't have to be elected to make that difference. And you're proving that with holding this forum today.
I'll jump in. I think first, the state of Nevada is a anomaly, sort of. We have a female majority legislature. 4 out of the 5 large cities in our state, our mayors are female. And it's becoming more and more and more common in Nevada for females to be in government. Even at our federal level, 4 of our 6 are female. And so it's been changing over time to be more and more and more common for women to serve in those leadership roles. So I'm fortunate in that way. But I think even going back to, we need to work with our young women when they are in school, when they're in high school. Girls tend to be very catty with one another, and they tear each other down a lot of times, and they don't realize that that's your crew, that those are the women that are going to help you rise as you're coming up through your career and through motherhood and everything else. We need to teach our girls, to have a backbone and to not be so worried about what everybody else thinks of them, and to worry about instead about building those coalition and those strong friendships and the community of girls who think like you do, or not necessarily think like you do, but in the way that they want to help one another as well, and build those communities of strong women coming up through high school, coming up through their careers, and make sure that they are confident in themselves, that they are confident in their voice, that they know the avenues that are available to them, and teach them and mentor them. Just like was said earlier, mentoring cannot be stressed enough, but it needs to start very, very, very early so that young women understand that they have a seat at the table, and it can be the head of the table. And I think the more we do that, the more we'll have a wider field of women working toward having that as a goal, to be in the leadership positions in their government.
Yeah, I will echo that too. I think that the modeling is so critical, but this is a great time to just say that Melina Carnicelli's program, First Amendment, First Vote, is answering that call, and absolutely giving young women the exposure and helping them to imagine themselves in these kinds of roles. Because I think for so many, I mean, in Nevada, it sounds like there are powerful women who are leading and who are providing that role model and making it much more commonplace to experience the benefits of women in positions of leadership. But for so many other places, it's just not happening. When I first ran, I'll never forget that Seneca Falls, even as the birthplace of women's rights, was just so steeped in these archaic traditions and family structures. I had a very well-intended elderly gentleman who put his arm around me when I came to his door asking for his vote, and he said, "Honey, you don't want to do this. This is not for you." And unfortunately, if young people, if young women are not seeing women who are strong, who are effective, and who are doing great things, they're not going to be inspired to seek out those kinds of careers. So if Melina could talk a little more, or if Rima could talk a little more about First Amendment, First Vote, that's something that we can all get behind.
Yeah, definitely. I think that First Amendment, First Vote was very beneficial to me because, I mean, starting off in high school, I definitely, starting off in high school, I just saw this as a club. And I was really, at first I was like, oh, it's just something I'm in. And then as soon as I went to the first summit, because we have a summit every year. And we talk to like influential women in local government. And immediately going in there, it was just the atmosphere, everything, and something switched in me. I was like, wow, this is something that I want to be a part of. This is something that is really amazing. And I could really feel the community of girls around me. And I just was like, yes, I am completely doing this for like the rest of my high school. And actually, that kind of brings me to my next question for you guys. For a high schooler who knows that they want to pursue the political field, what opportunities do you think that they should take within their community, such as clubs and public service and other stuff like that? And we can start with Mayor Romero.
I think any opportunity you take to volunteer for your community in any capacity, whether it's for a nonprofit or for a board on your city, we have a Blue Ribbon Commission in the city of Henderson that is largely made up of high school students, and they have very active roles in our government in setting goals for how children are perceived and used for their ideas and suggestions for our city. Anytime that you can take that role, I think student council plays a good role. In fact, both myself and our city manager were on the same city council or student council together in high school, and so it helps you understand the processes involved on a much smaller level, obviously, but getting involved and taking that leadership role as early as you possibly can, and then volunteering so that you understand what's happening in your community, that you're aware of the issues that are being faced, the differences in the population that you serve. Not everybody's the same in the same community, and you need to understand what those differences are and what each group needs. You need to understand the resources that are available to be able to address those needs. And there's no better way to do that than getting started early and volunteering as much as you possibly can.
I'll chime in unless you were going in a certain order, Rima.
No, we can just
Okay.
do it, whoever wants to chime in can chime in.
Yeah. So we have a Mayor's Youth Advisory Council where we give young people an opportunity to be a part of city parish government, bring their ideas to the table. We have projects for them to work on. I have gotten them engaged with the National League of Cities youth component. And so that's one way to get our young people involved. I've also had young high school students who have taken the initiative to come and spend time with me, who have used my role as mayor president as a project that they wanted to get involved in. I have a small case study. There's a young lady who came to me in high school, and she interviewed me for one of her high school projects. She went on to go to college, and while she was in college, she volunteered in my campaign. She eventually became an intern in our office. She graduated from college, and then we made her part of our comms team here in City Parish. So she gets exposed to a whole lot. While her goal may not be to run for elected office, she will definitely be one of those staffers who can help empower someone that is a mayor because of her experience here in our office. So we curate experiences where young people can come and be involved in our office. And I think that has to be intentional and known as well.
Would any other panelists like to add on? Maybe Mayor Lily May?
Sure. I'm hoping my internet is working okay. I know I've seen it freeze a couple times on the screen. Um, but I wanted to say that I think it takes courage to join clubs and things, and especially in having been when I was a only girl in computer science club back in the early 80s and the only one of the first Explorer Boy Scouts in the 80s. I think it's important to seek a mentor, be a mentor, because those opportunities open up, and I don't think everyone realizes how important it is. And also to come with solutions. If you like art, we have solutions like to help prevent graffiti with box art, so our students create the beautiful artwork and know better messaging for that, or for mental health, that we have our mental health art contest that we've been doing for the past 7 years, because the best messenger comes from your peers. We also, like Mayor Broom had shared, encourage our youth to be involved as interns in non-pandemic years. We've had up to 33 in the city. So talked about Greywater project and talking about getting people to adopt code that changes it. And she's been doing very well. I've seen her on Good Morning America and Washington Times and other areas and publications. I also think that, there's opportunities with internships and police advisory committees. We have on our youth, we have a youth council member recognition in terms of, advisory commissions, from police, from other libraries. So we want people to be involved and give us their feedback, because I think firsthand. And then finally, I think also when we talk about advocacy, the register to vote efforts that are here in our city, we work so closely with our schools. And
Mayor Lily May seems to have cut off for me, but maybe we can now switch on to Mayor Smith. If you have anything you just want to add on.
Sure. I think the only thing I would add to the conversation so far is that if someone doesn't know, if a young person doesn't know where to begin, go to a board meeting. Go to your local government board meetings. One of the strongest activists in our community, she actually started going to our village board meetings because she didn't have air conditioning and she wanted to find a cool place to hang out. And it didn't take long before she realized that there were so many topics being discussed. There were so many issues that were being dealt with that touched her personally. And until she had exposure, she had no idea. So my advice would be, just attend and listen, and it won't take long before you realize that nearly every aspect of local government is impactful and meaningful, and there are ways to get involved.
Thank you all. I think we have you back, Mayor May.
Yes.
I'm
I was just
gonna
saying that,
so
I don't know
glad
if you heard about me saying for register to vote. That's what I.
All right, so we might be a little glitchy, but so we do have Q&A. We have generally found that around the hour mark is when we start losing some of people who have to continue on with meetings, but I think we'll wrap up with one or two more questions from the audience. And we have several questions. I'm sorry, we may not have time to get to all of them, but I will say we have this one question that is, I'm curious if Zoom talks like these are offered to younger elementary school and middle school students. If I had seen a panel like this decades ago, I might have added public service to the list of careers I considered. Do the mayors ever do school visits? First thing I will say, just I want to throw in there, it's never too late to consider a career in public service, as I'm sure these mayors would tell you. And I just wanted to mention one thing we do as part of our Teach a Grow to Lead project at COP is that we encourage elected officials to go into elementary school classrooms with a kid's book. There's a number of books that talk about civic engagement in different ways, including Grace for President and Grace Goes to Washington. Those are good books. Because the idea is that we're normalizing women's public leadership for girls and for boys. And then kids have an opportunity to ask a local elected official about their job. So it's a great opportunity. but I will just turn it over to the last part of that question was how can I support First Amendment first vote in these organizations? And I will just say on behalf of both of us, obviously donations are always appreciated, but there are many different ways to get involved. And so you could reach out to, those of us will share our contact information. But if the mayors want to talk about, do you do school visits? How do you reach elementary age kids? We know it's so important to start as young as possible, get people engaged in government. I'll open the floor. If nobody wants to jump in.
I will. On a regular basis, I'm at elementary schools all the time. I go both to talk about my role as mayor, and I also go just to do things like we provide Christmas for one of our lower income schools, and I work with the business community to bring Christmas to the kids. I go and read to them during reading week, and actually not during reading week. I'm there all the time. So I partner with Workforce Connections, and we go in and talk about career paths for people, and I talk about what I do, and it's a very good opportunity for young kids. And they ask some funny questions, but they ask some really meaningful questions as well. And I think that you're correct. The earlier you get in to let kids know what's available to them, the broader their horizons are.
Yeah, that's
I just like to add, I do this all the time for the Vote for Susanna, the first woman mayor. And I love going with women mayors to discuss this, and the questions we get are absolutely incredible. It has been one of the most meaningful parts of working with this topic in this book. And mayors, I would love to do it with you in your cities if you're interested.
Well, I was just going to say, prior to getting on this panel today, I did not know about a Vote for Susanna, but I will definitely be incorporating it into my selection of books that I read to elementary students on a regular basis. I have to tell you that the book that I have been reading time and time again has been Grace for President. It has not only become the children's favorite book, but my favorite book as well. Every time I read it, I get just as excited as the first time when I read it. But I'm going to incorporate a Vote for Susanna in my reads as well when I go to the schools. And so not only do I read, but of course, we go to the elementary schools and just let the children, for example, the first day of school here in Baton Rouge, I stood there and greeted the students at one of the schools as they came in. It gets a little expensive for me sometimes, but I have elementary school students who reach out to me, and I take them out to lunch. And sometimes their parent comes, and sometimes it's just me. They come with me. They spend a day with the mayor. I have some elementary school students who spend a day with the mayor as well. And so then I have some elementary school students that are writing their own books. And so I premiere them. And then on council days, we have an opportunity to do presentations, commendations, etc. And so many of the individuals that I recognize are students, whether they're from elementary school, middle school, high school, but they get recognized at our council meeting. And I will tell you, not long ago, I received a volume of notes, and this happens every now and then, from classes that are studying civics, right? And so they sent me some notes, which I have kept, a third grade class at one of our schools, telling me that I'm the best mayor ever, saying very positive affirmations. And so after receiving those notes, I went to the class and spent time with that class, and I do that often. So as you can see, that's one of my favorite things to do, how I have lit up since we started talking about going to the schools. I really enjoy that, and giving the students an opportunity to see what they can be.
Yes, sorry that So we talk about opportunities and technology.
I think technology might not be working in our favor today, but maybe Mayor Smith, you could take it.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I think that in one of the consistent things I hear, I ask people all the time because my work at MRB Group allows me to spend a lot of time talking to community leaders, and I ask them all the time, what was your inspiration, and what led you to want to lead in your community? And one of the most consistent things I hear is that they came from civic-minded families, that their parents strongly influenced whether they felt the need to engage in their communities. And so I think that one of the things that as community leaders we need to do is encourage and model a sea change in terms of the atmosphere surrounding engagement. And the what I see today is that there's an avoidance of uncomfortable conflict, and conflict is inherent in community engagement. Everyone tends to see conflict as being negative, and when it really isn't. Destructive conflict is negative, right? But positive conflict is what our nation was built on. And I think what we need to do is we need to get past this cancel culture that social media has created. And I think as community leaders, we need to encourage respectful debate, right? Genuine curiosity and a more welcoming attitude about differences of opinion. And I think if we can model that, and if we can change the atmosphere in terms of public engagement, that'll get parents involved, and then that'll get more kids involved, and everyone will see that there is a place for them in local government. There's a place for them in terms of participating in local government. I think that's what really is going to create a sea change.
No,
Not sure if you
so
want. Go ahead.
I was going to try to talk if it works. I hope. I might turn off my video just because the fact that might be better connection that way. But truly, I think, it is that effort that we do today, and that we reach out to kids younger to see that there is the role models. In particular, as the mayor, we've gone from majority men to majority women on the council, and we're actually majority minority council. And so it's because of these deliberate programs that we have and the opportunity to mentor and to have these outreaches that we can see the change. And so I'm really excited, and I appreciate all of my sister electeds and all of the organizations that support us.
I think we can move on to another question. So let's see here. Okay, one by Ying Liu, as she's asking, as you observe women's representation increasing, what impact have you noticed? If we have more female leaders in your city, how do you think that would influence the policymaking process and potentially the policy outcomes? And anyone can, take the floor. Mayor Romero, do you want to start on that?
Sure. As I said earlier, a lot of times women are more open to bringing people to the table. And I think the more voices you have with differing ideas, the better the outcome in the end, because you're seeing, even if you completely disagree on the issue, you're seeing the other side. And I think better legislation, better ordinances come out of a constructive conversation from bringing people to the table. And I think women are better at doing that, at least most of the time. There are probably some exceptions, but I think we don't bring an ego to the table. And so we are more apt to listen to all the differing sides, bring them together and find common ground and better solutions as a result.
Let's see, Mayor Broom, would you like to add on to that?
I understand your question was about the value added of having more women. So certainly it's important, as we've said time and time again, to make sure that women have a seat at the table, and that we create and curate that opportunity for women to have seats at the table. I certainly believe that as we look at local government, while there is an increase, I will tell you that here in our state of Louisiana, at one point, the top 3 cities had female mayors, and that has transitioned. So we've lost one female mayor of one of the major cities. And so I think it's very important that we make sure that we are doing everything possible to engage everyone, all who has a specific interest at all levels.
Mayor Smith, do you have anything to add on? Oh, you're on mute.
I think Mayor May has got her hand up, so I'll
Oh.
defer to
Yes.
to Mayor May.
No, I was just trying to find a different form of technology to see if I could get back in. And so my cell phone might have been the alternative choice. As I was saying, that it's important to have women and to build this pipeline. And we're very grateful for organizations like this. I feel it is critical to foster it, the earlier the better, and to show that there's empowerment of our women and the supported networks. The organizations like CAWP and First Amendment, First Voice, the stories that we tell our youth when we're out there, whether it's school visits, faith-based visits, and different community organizations. That's what I think. I'm really proud to see Rima today also leading the way as one of our many stellar interns. It's these type of role models, I think, that really help associate our youth to the opportunities. And it's truly, I also heard earlier, there's no time limit. I would say that unfortunately, besides some of the other challenges we face as women, sometimes ageism is another area that I face now. When at one point, when you're too young, they feel that you're inexperienced. When you're getting older, they're thinking you're too old for this. And so showing that we can have any opportunity in our time and lifeline that we can make this difference. It's not limited, because everyone brings some part of their experiences, as mentioned earlier by my fellow mayor, and how important it is for us to deliver all those choices and those opportunities to make that connection, because I think peers really make a difference.
Yes, definitely. Mayor Smith, do you want to add anything on to that, or, you're back on mute again, just let me know. You're on mute. Yes.
Got it. Thank you. I think Michelle Romero said it best when she said women tend to have less ego at play. I think women can be great facilitators. I have a personal philosophy about leadership, because I think leadership is not about being the smartest person in the room. It's about facilitating, and empowering others to contribute and to lead, and gathering talent, right? Cultivating talent. And so that's something I think that women can do, and is a really powerful form of leadership. So yeah.
Well, this has been such a great conversation. I'm gonna take the liberty of asking the final question. I was trying to think about which question to end on, because we have so many questions, and I apologize to the people in the audience. It just means we need to have more of these conversations, and we hope to in the future. But I guess I would ask this kind of forward thinking, And for the students in the audience and for the adults in the audience, anyone who's thinking about getting involved in politics and government, what's one, and it could be short or long, however you want to do this, but what's one bit of advice or bit of wisdom that you wish you had when you started your journey, what you would say to them today? And it could be any form of advice at all. It could be about personal or serving, how you want to, how you would answer it is up to you. And I'll
Uh,
leave the floor to Engineer Smith.
I'll jump in. My advice would be to not only be open to differences of opinion, but to actually seek out differences of opinion. Don't surround yourself with like-minded people, and be willing to be challenged and be curious. The best wisdom in life can come from really unexpected places.
Thank you.
Some of the best advice I could give you is to know yourself, because you will have people come at you from all different directions and try to influence and make you change or bend or maybe change your values. If you know yourself, then it won't matter what people are saying about you that don't know about you, that don't know you. It won't matter when there are nasty things written about you on social media. You know yourself, you know the people surrounding you know you, and that's all you need to care about. You don't have to take on all the negativity that will come at you. That's just a fact of life. If you go into public service and you're in a public forum, there will be people who are, behind the keyboard, just thinking they can say whatever they would like about you, whether there's no basis in reality or truth. And if you know yourself and you surround yourself with people who love you and support you, then you'll be okay no matter what comes at you.
Thank you.
I would say that I agree with that comment. There's right now, sometimes in social media and other areas, the cowardice of the keyboard. It's easy to challenge and say what people want to say. But I also would encourage people that you have a voice and use it. That's one of the things that I think is very important. Far too often, we're afraid to tell our story and we let others tell our story for us. And when you're faced with these situations, you do have to amplify your voice and make sure it's heard. Because sometimes I jokingly say, it's the candle, the smallest candle in the darkest room will shine bright. And so make sure that you raise your voice and make sure that you're being heard. Don't be ignored, because your voice counts.
Thank you.
I would say and encourage young women to stay rooted and grounded in your personal values. Because your identity is not in a position. Your identity is not in a title. So make sure that you stay rooted and grounded in who you are and what your personal values and convictions are. I would also say that make sure that you surround yourself with wise counsel, people who can give you wise counsel. I would also say that examine your motives when you are pursuing perhaps elected office. Why do you really want to run? Because unfortunately, in today's society, there are too many people who are hungry for power, who are hungry for authority, and that is not the right motivation that will take you on a positive journey of public safety. I would say that your motivation should be also rooted and grounded in your care and your concern for the citizens of your community above all else. And lastly, I'll close with this. Recently, my husband started looking at the movie Harriet, about Harriet Tubman. Well, I had seen it before and I was like, and so I decided to watch it one more time. And as often when you look at a movie the second or third time, you always get these little golden nuggets out of it. And I would share this with you. I got this from the movie, and this one line: remember that fear is your enemy. If you are going to conquer If you're going to pursue something that you've never done before, if you're going to take risks, remember that fear is your enemy. And so pursue it with all your heart. That's what I would leave with you.
And
Go ahead.
with just one more statement is that right now there's so much divisiveness in the world. And I agree that you should pick different opinions and be able to willing to listen to others, especially in the role of mayor in my city. It's a nonpartisan role. And so I would say to people, from the Conference of Mayors and the people we often talk about, there's three parties, the Democrat, Republican, and mayors. And so I'd say also in this moment right now, people need to pick people over politics and to be able to represent your community, regardless of their different perspectives, that we want to make sure that their voices are being heard and that they're be kind, be safe, and be just.
Wow. Thank you all. This was an amazing conversation. I want to thank you for sharing your experiences and your wisdom with us. We know how busy you are as mayors. So we couldn't be more grateful that you were able to be with us today. And this again will be shared, this conversation, and it will be useful to so many people beyond just who is even here today, but helping us inspire the next generation of public leaders. So thank you for that. Again, on behalf of COP and First Amendment First Vote, we are, grateful to the audience. We're grateful to all of you. And I'm going to just now turn it over to Karen, who will share with us some final words and our call to action, because it's very important to end with where are we going from here. So let's have a call to action. Karen?
Okay. Thank you. As you can see this screen right here, I'm sure these are some websites that are important for you to take a look at. There are also there's also information in the chat of different things from First Amendment First Vote. On my website, I have guides that range from kindergarten through adulthood of different ways that you can connect with your local leadership, ways that you can learn and engage, and ways that you can become inspired to be a part of the process. I want to leave us with one positive note. I like that Mayor May was saying something very positive. While the book A Vote for Susanna became my inspiration after a lifetime in national politics, I knew very little about local politics. I learned very quickly. I felt empowered by every woman who said to me, "This is my story, but here I am." And so what I realized in writing the book was that although it's a story about Susanna Salter and the challenges and barriers she faced, it's also a love letter to hope, because although they did not want a woman, a group of men were responsible for a woman coming to power. It's a sign that although things may seem chaotic and caustic and divisive right now, America has proven at some point in our history that people can set aside their differences and come together to do what's right for the common good. So I think that's an important note to leave on, and let that be an inspiration to you to get involved, to get your family involved, to get your community involved. And as always, I know you can reach out to COP. You can reach out to me on my website. And I hope to see what you do. So thank you to the mayors, to COP, to First Amendment First Vote, and especially Melina, for listening to me when I came to you with this idea nearly 3 years ago, and Diana Smith, who became a big council. I am greatly honored to be a part of it, and I look forward to seeing where we go.
And I will say again, thank you to Karen. Thank you to Melina. Thank you to Rima for being a great moderator. And also to let everyone know, when we send out the recording, we will also send out these slides with the contact information and some of the links that you saw, and we'll try to gather the ones from the chat that have been dropped in. And if anyone wants to add to that, we certainly will be able to do so. So thank you all again. Happy Women's Equality Day. And we look forward to seeing you all again before it's too long and continuing these great conversations. Take care.